What if I told you Lewis Hamilton's toughest opponent this season isn't Verstappen, Piastri, or even Leclerc, but something far more invisible, an internal battle happening inside Ferrari's very DNA? The headlines talk about patience, about a legend adapting to a new car. But people close to the situation see something much darker, a tug-of-war over who gets to dictate how the SF25 should truly be driven. Former F1 maverick Juan Pablo Montoya summed it up perfectly. Hamilton approaches corners his way, and Ferrari's engineers keep insisting that's not the Ferrari way. Now think about that, telling a 7-time world champion to unlearn the very habits that made him great. It sounds upside down, doesn't it? And here's the reality check. 14 races, 0 podiums, not a single bottle of champagne in Hamilton's hands, while Leclerc already has 5 trophies. The statistics are shouting, but Ferrari's response is little more than hushed excuses. So the real question, are we witnessing a natural adjustment period, or is this pride disguised as process? Pride that refuses to yield, even when it's costing precious time on track. Because under the surface, whispers are growing louder. Hamilton isn't failing to adapt, he's being forced to conform. And some paddock insiders claim that's not inefficiency. It's Ferrari's traditions acting like shackles. Welcome to the silent civil war over the soul of the SF25. And for the first time, it seems Hamilton is no longer staying silent. Let's be clear, Hamilton didn't sign for Ferrari to be a pupil, he came to lead. But parts of Ferrari's technical group, they still see themselves as the professors. According to insiders and briefings from within the paddock, a segment of the engineering team has consistently pushed back on Hamilton's requests, particularly around rear-end stability and sharper steering feel. One source put it bluntly, they want him to drive like Charles. But Hamilton isn't Charles. Telemetry from practice sessions confirms it. Lewis leans on aggressive brake migration, sharp turn-in, echoes of the car philosophy he thrived with at Mercedes. But Ferrari's setup philosophy has been moulded for Leclerc's smoother mid-corner flow. Every time Hamilton's camp pushes for adjustments, say to differential preload or rear suspension dampers, the response often comes back the same, not in protocol. And when changes do happen, they're sometimes rolled back overnight with no real explanation. That's not adaptation, that's resistance. And resistance breeds something even more dangerous. Distrust. So when an engineering team signals it's our car and it'll be driven our way, they're not just brushing off feedback, they're silencing a champion's instincts. Behind closed doors, Hamilton isn't frustrated with lap times. He's frustrated with the cold wall of silence he's running into. And in Formula One, silence often marks the start of revolution. On the surface, Leclerc looks like the model of consistency. 5 podiums, a pole, regular top 5 finishes. But those results mask an uncomfortable truth Ferrari doesn't want to admit. Because every time Leclerc succeeds while Hamilton struggles, it strengthens a dangerous belief inside the garage. That Leclerc's way is the right way and Hamilton's approach is wrong. That makes reshaping the car around Lewis not just a technical decision, but a political gamble. Look at Hungary as an example. Leclerc started from pole, controlled the opening laps, then suddenly lost pace. George Russell even suggested Ferrari hiked Leclerc's tyre pressures in the final stint to protect the floor, sacrificing grip. Former F1 boss Gary Anderson dismissed that theory as nonsense. But the fact remains, no clear reason was ever given for the collapse. And that's the issue. When Leclerc stumbles, the explanation is wrapped in mystery. When Hamilton struggles, it's labelled failure. And that difference in narrative shapes everything. Who gets listened to, who gets believed, who gets the benefit of the doubt. Ferrari may have invested years of belief in Leclerc, but that investment now creates tension. Every suggestion from Hamilton feels like a challenge to the established hierarchy. And when performance politics get dressed up as engineering choices, sabotage stops sounding like conspiracy and starts looking like standard operating procedure. Are you upset with me or something? Hamilton's question over team radio after Monaco wasn't just an emotional outburst, it was a warning shot. What followed wasn't reassurance or an explanation, it was silence. a deliberate, pointed silence from his race engineer, Riccardo Adami, the very person meant to be his lifeline during the chaos. Ferrari later downplayed it. Team boss Fred Vasseur claimed, "We don't talk between turn 1 and the tunnel." But that wasn't mid-race. That was after the checkered flag. Silence in that moment isn't protocol, it's fracture. And this isn't isolated. From Hamilton's sarcastic tea break quip in Miami to cryptic mid-race guidance that leaves him second-guessing strategy, the radio has become its own battlefield. It paints a picture of disconnect, of miscommunication, of mistrust. It shows an engineer who either can't or won't connect with the man he's supposed to guide. And if a team can't even manage the most critical voice in their driver's ear, what bigger issues are festering behind the scenes? The hardest part? This isn't new. The cracks have been there for a while. They're just finally loud enough for the world to hear. Because deep inside Maranello, two narratives are being written. One polished for the public, claiming Hamilton just needs more time. And the other, whispered in the corridors, warning that this isn't adaptation at all. It's a standoff. Behind Ferrari's closed doors, the whispers are getting sharper. Hamilton's data is beginning to rattle Leclerc's comfort zone. Back-to-back weekends in Hungary and Spa laid it bare. Performance traces revealed something Ferrari's press releases would never admit. On pure race pace, Hamilton is often stronger, even when boxed into compromised setups. At Spa, telemetry showed Hamilton nursing his tyres more effectively with a high downforce package, despite the car being underfueled. He even said it publicly after the race, shattering Ferrari's carefully polished media script. And at Imola, Hamilton didn't need strategy or DRS. He simply passed Leclerc on track. Instinct, timing, confidence. Yet, in the debrief that followed, celebrations were muted. The review room split. Leclerc with his strategist, Hamilton off to the side with only a dummy and a couple of data engineers. One insider put it bluntly. The numbers scared them. Not because they were wrong, but because they were undeniable. And here's the twist. Riccardo Adami, long believed to be firmly in Leclerc's corner, is shifting. Word in the paddock is that Adami has quietly started pressing Hamilton's feedback harder in engineering meetings. Carefully, subtly, but undeniably. And that's why the tension is spiking, because the hierarchy Ferrari has clung to is now at odds with the raw evidence. And in Formula One, when data collides with politics, only one side survives. After Spa, the shift wasn't obvious on the timing sheets. It was visible in Hamilton's body language. For half the season, he'd been patient, adapting, keeping things measured. But that Sunday, his tone changed. He no longer tiptoed around Ferrari's messaging. He said it straight. "We underfueled for the wing we had. No blame, just exposure." In that one comment, he punctured Ferrari's wall of silence. That single admission triggered alarm bells at Maranello. Emergency meetings weren't about setup, they were about optics. A senior engineer privately called it Hamilton's Declaration of Independence, because he didn't just reveal a tactical misstep, he revealed the split itself. A team that projects unity to the world, but behind the scenes is fractured into factions. And that changed the way Ferrari now operates. Strategy briefings quietly adjusted. Hamilton suddenly gained earlier access to scenario planning. His feedback wasn't just being noted, it was shaping decisions. Simulations now run his preferred setups in parallel with Leclerc's, not as experiments, but as real options. A subtle sign after Spa made it obvious. A new torque delivery model went live in the simulator. It was something Hamilton had pushed for since China. Leclerc hadn't asked for it. He wasn't even told about it until days later. That's the balance shifting. Hamilton isn't demanding authority, he's earning it. One correction at a time, one exposed flaw at a time. And Ferrari's old guard is realizing that silence no longer shields the system, it exposes it. Right now, Ferrari feels less like one united force and more like two teams under the same banner. On one side, Hamilton, methodical, data-driven, pushing for performance through precision and repeatability. On the other, Leclerc, instinctive, aggressive, still adored by the traditionalists. And that split is bleeding into everything. Simulator priorities, engineering assignments, even who gets heard first on race day. After Hungary and Spa, a pattern emerged. Hamilton's feedback set the direction. Brake bias ranges widened, torque maps adjusted, throttle profiles recalibrated, all his requests. Meanwhile, Leclerc's camp grew restless. Engineers who once prioritised his notes now spent more time double-checking Hamilton's. It's not sabotage, it's simply proof winning over politics. Hamilton's analysis delivers performance gains. Leclerc's less so. And when one driver's input keeps improving the car, the engineering team naturally follows. Insiders describe debriefs where Leclerc's questions draw less urgency. His setup ideas pushed lower on the pile. Not because of bias, but because data is louder than reputation. Ferrari isn't officially declaring a shift in priority, but the drift is real, quiet, procedural, and undeniable. It isn't open conflict yet, but it's an ideological divide that no press release can paper over forever. And with Monza looming, Ferrari's home temple, the cathedral of speed, that divide threatens to spill out into the open. This year, Monza won't just be about fighting Red Bull or McLaren. It could be Ferrari's own civil war, played out on its most sacred stage. Two philosophies, two drivers, one scarlet team being pulled in opposite directions. Hamilton arrives in Monza not just as a competitor chasing points, but as a force actively reshaping Ferrari from within. His feedback is now baked into simulation baselines. His voice is steering engineering discussions. His vision is slowly becoming Ferrari's. And Leclerc, he feels the shift. Sources say he's quietly requested oversight of setup changes, not to improve them, but to monitor how the car is evolving away from him. That leaves Ferrari's engineers stuck on a tightrope. Follow Hamilton's data-driven path and risk alienating the old hierarchy. Stick with Leclerc's philosophy and risk ignoring the clearer path to performance. And in front of the Tifosi, the most passionate and unforgiving fans in Formula One, every misstep will echo louder than an engine failure. So here's the storm cloud hanging over Monza. Who does Ferrari truly build around? The legacy and loyalty of Leclerc or the relentless precision of Hamilton? One has history, the other is bringing results. And in this sport where perception is everything, the driver who owns Monza may end up owning Ferrari's future.